Hey, it's Harry here. So I had the great, awesome privilege of clerking for Thurgood Marshall, and this is the 55th anniversary of his appointment on the Supreme Court, a historic day in and of itself. And a fantastic feature of the Marshall clerkship is not every time, but occasionally when the mood struck him, Marshall would kind of sit back a little and regale us clerks with different accounts of his life, which was unbelievably rich and 20 times cooler than anyone who's ever been on the Supreme Court, from his days basically riding the rails to as the last hope of people who'd been taken advantage of or deprived of their legal rights in the South, up to Brown versus Board of Education and after. But the appointment today puts me in mind of the stories he told us about when he first joins the Supreme Court. I'm really happy to be here with my co-clerk with Thurgood Marshall, the estimable Michael P. Doss of Chicago. And we just thought we were talking and we're just remembering a few things and wanted to kind of play them out a bit. So, Mike, thanks so much for joining. Good to see you over the camera anyway.
Nice to see you too, Harry, and happy to join in on this occasion.
Yeah. So the first thing I thought of when Beshkloff, I saw Michael Beshkloff tweet, was Marshall actually told us about the event that we've got a picture of, which is the sort of final conversation of Marshall as after he takes the oath. And so, do you remember this? He's with Johnson, who's gone to great lengths to appoint him. Maybe we'll get back to that. But he suddenly goes in sort of judge's mode and tells Johnson, we're kind of separate now. I might not, be able to always please you. Do you remember this story a little bit?
Definitely, yeah. The story comes together, and when you think of these two larger than life characters, both physically and in terms of
they're
two
guys,
imposing people. That they're both obviously never met President Johnson, but Thurgood Marshall was an imposing man, even in his 80s. Was a large personality and a large person. And the story of his interaction with President Johnson, where you can just imagine their language, because the phrase that is triggered in my mind is Marshall telling Johnson that, of course, if need be, he will kick his ass if he comes before the court, and that is what needs to be done. And you can just imagine how much President Johnson would appreciate and be amused by that type of exchange.
It's really true, because Johnson, I think, is somewhat, can be salty himself. But there's really, at this point, got to be a lot of love between them. So Johnson, as I recall, Marshall is the Solicitor General of the United States, the U.S.'s top lawyer, which he considered the greatest, most fun job he ever had. I think just the privilege of you were an AUSA, as was I, after clerking, maybe in part because of his influence, and being able to stand up and say Michael Doss for the United States and do the right thing. Anyway, he talked about that, but Johnson went through very Johnson-like maneuvers. He wanted to put Marshall on the Supreme Court. Small little problem is there was no vacancy, so he maneuvered to make the new attorney. He got the current Attorney General, he kicked him upstairs to an appointment, and he made the Attorney General, Ramsey Clark, who was the son of a sitting Supreme Court Justice. And that Supreme Court Justice, not that old, 67, resigned. And here was the opening that Johnson wanted. So he'd engineered it all with moving pieces over sort of 2 or 3 years. But they were really, I thought, I mean, unlikely in a way. Johnson, a Texas good old boy till he became president, and Marshall, obviously his time in the South was in a different guise, but he really, my recollection is he really admired Johnson and thought
Oh,
he was, his
definitely.
heart was in the great, yeah.
Their backgrounds perhaps couldn't be more different, although
Right.
there's a lot of similarity. I expect, but they were kindred spirits in a number of ways, and there definitely was a feeling of closeness that was never. He recounted stories of President Kennedy and Robert Kennedy as well, but he never expressed the same affection that he expressed towards President Johnson. And the opportunity to serve on the court was obviously a unique one. But I also recall what Harry just remarked on, which is how his love for being a true litigator, and that's his real Justice Marshall's true calling was as a lawyer and litigator for clients. And he was an outstanding Supreme Court justice, but I think he got the most fun and out of being a litigator and like being an SG. So in that regard, there was a cost in taking this outstanding opportunity. But and you're reminding me of this the story. I actually saw not too long ago a transcript of a recording of Lyndon Johnson inviting Marshall to take the SG position, the Solicitor General position, back in 1965. And I was struck that during that conversation, which is available, it's a transcript, Johnson impresses upon Marshall that he has contacted two people who both have recommended his highly. And those two people are Ramsey Clark and Justice Clark. That both of those names are mentioned in 1965, which goes to Harry's earlier point about Johnson thinking through how he might get this then Judge Marshall onto the Supreme Court, and so it was. I don't think that can be a coincidence that he would mention those names back when he was offering the solicitor.
Right, that might have been a big wink. I mean, it is classic Johnson in a way. So we think of him as a maneuverer, and he's got a checkered history as the majority leader, maybe. But Marshall was like this, he really 100% believed in his heart and felt. I remember his remarking on the sort of tragedy of Vietnam, among other things. It bogged Johnson down in his plans for equality and civil rights, which he did, quite a bit of anyway, would have, he thought just gone in even greater directions. Something else this just put me in mind of, it's a little bit earlier. I'm pretty sure it's as early as 1960. And in 1963, Kenya gains independence. But around this time, also is again a little bit before and under a different president, but begins his real robust connection with Kenya and his role as a kind of U.S. ambassador of the rule of law to the fledgling independent colony and country to be. I'm reminded because he had a few keepsakes from Kenya in his office, and he was really proud of that work. And I think he's proud, it's funny, he was, Larry Tribe talked about this today, a liberal, and so was, often dissenting in the court, but unlike other members of the civil rights struggle, he was a real, he believed in America. He believed in the law. He was an institutionalist. And I think it gave him great pride to go over to a country in Africa as an ambassador of the U.S. and the rule of law and African American, and, really be able to spread a kind of word that he believed in.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree more. I'm sure that must have been a sight to behold.
Exactly. We've heard a few stories there as well. All right. Well, so this all comes home on the anniversary of that summer day 55 years ago. Fun to reminisce with you about it, Mike. And here's to the judge. Here's to TM.
Cheers.
Cheers.